Hello everyone, and welcome to my session, Effective Branching Strategies for Salesforce Developers. By means of introduction, I'm Rob Cowell, one of the DevOps advocates at GearSet. Before that, I spent the last 12 years as a Salesforce developer and architect for a number of different clients at different levels of DevOps maturity. So I've done a heck of a lot of deployments over the years. In today's session, I'll be looking at some of the common branching strategies used by Salesforce developers that have adopted source control as part of their DevOps strategy. I'll look at why the choice of branching strategy is important and how you can choose one that best fits your way of working. Now, while I won't be covering every approach that there is, I'll go over some of the common ones that we see before comparing the pros and cons of each approach in a summary. Finally, I'll leave you with ways in which you can expand your knowledge in this area. So since version control is such a fundamental building block of any DevOps architecture, Salesforce or otherwise, it's important to select a branching model that fits our needs as a business and as a team delivering change to that business. A branching strategy sets your DevOps process up for success in a number of ways. It helps define how each change is handled by the team, and thus ensures that the team follows a common approach. It helps reduce the complexity of change control and deployments, since changes move between environments for specific reasons. Bug fixes, UAT as part of a sprint, a release to prod for example. And it contributes to the efficiency and accuracy of your process by fostering better team collaboration, both within your team and across other teams in some cases. The branching strategy that we select both shapes and is shaped by factors such as team size, the team's technical level or experience with source control, our desired release cadence of changes, and more. It's therefore important that we endeavour to select a model that takes these in consideration. In this session, I will show you some of the common approaches that we've seen across teams of many sizes. Hopefully one will resonate with you as an approach to bringing your Salesforce DevOps to life. So let's kick off with a quick reminder on version control to set the scene a little. Version control itself is not a new concept. Many of you will have heard of it before and have likely used it too, as it's been one of the core tools underpinning software development on other platforms for a long time. But until recently, Salesforce teams were behind the curve when it came to adopting source control. And that's primarily because of the platform's unique clicks not code approach to org configuration, and the ease and power of making those changes without the need for complex dev tooling. By democratizing development in this way, Salesforce enabled the millions of developers and admins to see faster ROI from their investment. However, as a side effect, many of the tools and processes used by developers, more generally, haven't always been adopted quickly for Salesforce, and the ecosystem has often taken its own approach to development practices. Over the past few years, as the Salesforce platform has continued to mature and offer more complex functionality, it's become apparent that version control is an increasingly key tool for every Salesforce team. And we've seen the transition to source-driven workflows become more common. From our recent State of Salesforce DevOps survey, where we had over 500 Salesforce teams respond, we found that 70% of them were already using version control in one form or another. Fundamentally, version control provides a structure for tracking changes to files over time. Those files can be text documents, source code, or Salesforce metadata. Now what that gives you is a complete history of any change to any file at any time by anyone, and a much greater level of insight than you'll get through Salesforce natively. There are many flavors of version control out there, but the de facto standard for Salesforce is Git. Git provides teams with the ability to separate out multiple streams of development and avoid stepping on each other's toes by making changes in isolated branches instead of shared sandboxes. Git also provides a shared source of truth for all those changes. Each repository has a main branch which holds the current production-ready versions of all those files. By having everyone work from this same single starting point and tracking all the changes across the org, it's easy for teams to have a shared understanding of what's been approved and reduce the chances of any duplication. Git provides a structured way to review those changes via pull requests and integrate them back together before release, as well as dealing with any conflicts that may arise. Continuous integration, and as a result continuous delivery, is built on top of version control. It's just not possible without it. So version control is completely fundamental to any DevOps process. To get started with Git, you'll need to pick a hosting provider. The majority of teams are happy with hosted options like GitHub or Bitbucket or GitLab, but there's also the option to self-host, either with an offering from one of those major providers or by actually hosting the repo on your own servers yourself. So coming back to branching strategies, we can define them as a set of conventions or rules for how to use and manage branches when developing features in source control. Now, which one you pick depends on many things like the team size. Larger teams are more likely to have a larger variety of roles who need to interact with source control, and that may have an impact on which model is right for you. The team structure. More complex models will take longer for newer and less technical members of the team to get their heads around. Your desired release cadence. There can be business reasons that dictate a particular release cycle. Branching strategies will allow you to manage those requirements. And then there's your current workflow. In many ways, switching to using version control is an opportunity to reshape your workflow. Starting with a branching strategy that more closely resembles your existing workflow may give you the best chance of success. Look at how your environments are set up, for example, how many sandboxes, or how those environments will correspond to your branches. So the first strategy that we're going to look at is Git as a backup. This strategy is often the first step that teams take into version controlling their metadata. They set up one branch per environment and start pushing metadata from their orgs into the branches, often with automated jobs. Now, while this is a decent first step into getting metadata into Git, it's not really source control driven development. Source control is not acting as the source of truth here, just a record of the changes that have already happened. Now, to be clear, this is still useful, but to get most of the benefits of Git, you need to flip the flow of changes so that the changes start in source control and get deployed to your environments from there. For example, in this flow, you can't easily accommodate parallel development streams on multiple features or easily integrate peer review into the workflow. And because you're not regularly deploying from source control into your environments, you probably won't have confidence that you could roll back a release by deploying an older revision from source control. Version control is first and foremost designed to help teams create, track and deploy new features. It shouldn't be used as a full backup of your Salesforce environments for disaster recovery. There are solutions that are geared towards that are available. So the next one is the feature branch model. This is the simplest model and also the one that we tend to recommend as a good starting point. With a feature branch strategy, the latest version of your metadata is stored on the main branch, and it should ideally always be in a state that's ready to release. This is your only long-lived permanent branch. When someone wants to develop a feature or a fix, they create a new branch from main and work on that branch. Once the feature is done, the branch is merged back into the main. Ideally in this model, feature branches should be as short-lived as possible and deleted after use for general tidiness. Larger features should be sliced into smaller deliverables and implemented one at a time. This reduces the length of the feedback cycle and reduces the chance of merge conflicts. The main branch is usually deployed automatically to an environment whenever it is updated using a CI process. And this means that the latest version is always available for testing on that environment. Once you're happy with the version in that environment, a manual deployment from main to the production environment will release your changes to your end users. Optionally, before deployment to production, you could also deploy to a UAT or a QA environment for further testing. With the protected master branch model, it's similar to that feature branch model, but it adds one long-lived branch for integration before merging into main. In this model, the main branch isn't updated until everything is tested and ready to go. It's more of a protected source of truth, as only work that has been fully tested in UAT makes it into that final main branch. But one drawback with this model is that it's not possible to propagate just a subset of changes if some others aren't ready yet. If some work has been tested and approved in UAT, but other things aren't good to go yet, you can't easily cherry pick what you want to promote to main. You'd need to revert those features that aren't ready from the release branch. And so a lot of teams don't really like this model because of that inflexibility to pull out changes. So then we look at the expanded branching model. This model adds a few extra long-lived branches which correspond to your integration and your UAT or QA branches. Once a feature branch is complete, rather than merge straight into master, it's merged into your integration branch. To promote any changes from there that you're happy with, you'd then merge into the UAT branch and onwards and upwards into main. This model allows more fine-grained control of which changes get through to each environment. It allows for better isolated review of those changes on a per request or per ticket basis, and it's better for slower paced dev streams where those releases happen less frequently. So let's have a recap and summarise across those approaches. Git as a backup is pretty self-explanatory. We're using it as a mechanism to save our metadata off platform, which will allow us to revert changes, although it's not easy if the change is several Git commits back and there are deep chains of dependencies. It also doesn't really deliver any of those main benefits of a source-driven development approach. The feature branch model is great for teams that rapidly iterate. We use it ourselves internally, and it allows us to deliver changes daily, or often more frequently than that. If your process requires more stage gates and checks along the way, this may not work for your longer dev cycles. The protected master branch model has multiple testing environments and an integration branch to support them. That means that your primary main branch is your source of truth, but in this model it still kind of acts as a queue where items that require longer test cycles can hold up other changes until they're promoted to main. And then finally we looked at the expanded branching model, which allows for a more asynchronous approach to changes with individual pieces of work that can be moved through the environments, which allows for questions along the style of, Bob, where are we with Jira 349? Which can be accurately answered in the way it's in UAT awaiting sign-off, or it's in staging awaiting internal testing. There are several ways to kind of identify where in your pipeline a given change may be. Now I appreciate that that's been very much a whistle-stop tour of a few branching strategies. So if you'd like to learn more about the topic at your own pace, you can sign up for free at devopslaunchpad.com, where you'll find a module on Git branching strategies and many more topics, all completely free of charge. And there's also a brand new DevOps Fundamentals certification path, which will result in a digital certificate that you can share on social media to demonstrate your new DevOps knowledge. So hopefully that's given you some inspiration and shown you either a branching model that you can implement as part of your Salesforce DevOps journey, or for some of you, it's validated the approaches that you're already using. I'd like to thank Amit for inviting me to share this information with you on Apex Hours, and I look forward to hearing more about your future DevOps success stories. Thank you very much.